So once again, welcome to the Unshakable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Beth E, who's come to share for up to 40 minutes on the topic of Now About Sex, after which we'll open up for the Q&A portion of the meeting. So with that, Beth, it's over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Beth and I'm an alcoholic. So it's customary where I'm from to give you my statistics. My home group is By the Book in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. If you're not sure where that is, find Wall Street in New York City, draw a straight line down through the water, and you will find my town. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I sponsor other women. I have a service sponsor because I do service outside of my home group. And we're here today to talk about sex. Oh, by the way, my sobriety date is August 1st of 2017. And I love this topic now about sex because when I came in and I did that inventory, and first it was like, yeah, guy in the red car, can't remember his name. Yeah, probably stayed in that relationship too long. I really didn't understand that these principles and now about sex can actually apply to my relationships. So even if I talk about a relationship today, think about it as some of the principles that you could apply to children, to sponsees. But originally I thought it was all about sex and the actual act of sex, but it's going to give me a lot of clues in here about my behavior. So I don't know if you're like me, but did anybody ever remember a time when you confused a life lesson with a soulmate? Because I have done that numerous times, absolutely insane. And I thought I was normal, but a lot of my relationships were based on you need to make me feel good, then I won't ever get mad. And I always end up playing the victim to everybody. You're the problem. You need to change. Our book says we cannot fool ourselves to values. Well, I never had values. If you were cute, made me laugh, had a job, relationship. 6 months later, I thought I was Beth the Builder. I'm going to change him. You know what? You just couldn't love me enough or love me right. But I had no idea. I would have never have said these things about me. See, because I rationalized and justified a lot of my relationships. Ones that I should have stayed away from absolutely did not. I just rationalized and justified and then thought I was Beth the Builder. I looked for my security in other people. And so I would take hostages or I would be taken hostage. But I had no idea. I had no way of conceptualizing that stuff. Alcoholism, cocaineism, everything was the only normal life to me. So I didn't know that a lot of my poor choices in playing the victim was really that I attract what I am. And I didn't know that what I was insecure and controlling because I was so insecure. I didn't know until I sat down and put in black and white in a 4-step that underneath all this stuff, the first time I do a 4-step is like, yeah, I take things personally. Yeah, I'm judgmental. Yeah, I have no patience. Yeah, guy in the red car. Shouldn't have done that. But the longer that I'm sober, underneath all of that stuff, as I peel the onion back at 7 years of sobriety, I begin to have new experiences and see that underneath all of that and what drives my fears and these defects of character, what I call defaults or defenses, are these old ideas and beliefs. These old ideas and beliefs that I'm not enough, that I'm not going to be loved, that I'm not respected, that God's not going to take care of me. The belief that there's something lacking in me, and ego steps in. Ego is the bondage of self. Ego steps in and says, I'm going to be your savior, Beth. Ego says to me that I have special needs that can't be met within myself or by God, that I can't find peace or happiness. But in you, mister, when I find you at the bar or on Facebook or on some crazy dating site, in you, I find my completion by your love, support, and approval of me. And if you believe that I'm worthwhile and not the wretched person that I don't know that I believe that I am, then I can feel good about me. And what makes it even scarier is that ego, it makes no difference to ego who specifically fits that bill. And that's why I say I take hostages, because I never once had values. And so when we read now about sex, if you have your big books on page 68, it says now about sex. This is our inventory, the last of our inventories, right? I did my resentment inventory. I did my fear inventory. Now I'm working on my sex inventory. It says many of us needed an overhauling there. But above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. When my needs aren't being met by you, I'm not very sensible. I need, something's missing. Like I said, you couldn't love me right. I would just, after the infatuation was over, the passion, the desire, the attraction, right? All of a sudden, you leave your socks on the floor, and that starts to become a problem for me. I got married 2 years ago. There's a lot I've got to get to know about my husband. And sometimes he can just really bug me. And maybe we'll get into that and maybe we won't. But I've learned through principles that love is one of our principles. See, I thought love was a feeling. Love isn't a feeling, love is actually a verb. It's a verb, it's a choice, it's an action. Love is something that I have to do even when I don't feel like it. Right? But I've always been living off my emotions and running around and spraying my self-repellent of you make me feel. And it's like, young, you made me feel fearful, squirmy. It's like, I will blame you for how I feel. And the truth is no one has the power to make me feel a certain way. It's just, I've been giving people more power over my mind and my emotions than I have, especially in relationships. You need to make me feel good. I won't ever get mad. How dare you not do the dishes for 2 days, husband? Don't you know that that's your job? See, the mind starts playing a really scary movie in my head that if he doesn't do the dishes, that I will always have to do the dishes. Why? Because I'm not sensible. Where it says we tried to be sensible. I'm dramatic and grandiose, like a good little alcoholic cocaine addict that I am, that's where I need God and I need to stay right sized. Otherwise, this drama in my head gets overplayed. And now I'm just reacting because I've never had relationships with people. All I've ever had was reactionships. I don't know how to respond with love. I only know how to react because you need to do the dishes and then I won't ever be fearful and afraid because I'm going to tell myself a dramatic story that I'm always going to have to do the dishes if you don't do it. It's absolutely insane and I need to be restored to sanity, but I don't know that before I get here. I have no idea. So when we talk about our 10 step, watch, turn, ask. In the relationships that I have today, I need to watch, turn, ask. But I also need to know where I default to. Those would be my defects. I call them defaults or defenses. Because at the truth about who I am, at the root of who I am, not the branches are always poking me. At the root, we want to get at the root and we want to be able to pull that out so that these weeds can't grow again in me. But ego rebuilds at an astonishingly quickly rate, which is absolutely insane. So on page 132 in our big book, in the family afterwards, there's so many principles in this chapter. I absolutely love it. And I like reading this last story because this is how I've lived my life. It says on page it's 135, excuse me. One of our friends is a heavy smoker and coffee drinker. There is no doubt he overindulged. Seeing this and meaning to be helpful, his wife commenced to admonish him about it, right? A wet blanket, a nag. He admitted he was overdoing these things, but frankly said that he was not ready to stop. His wife was one of those persons who really feels there is something rather sinful about these commodities, so she nagged. And her intolerance finally threw him into a fit of anger. He got drunk. Right? Here's this guy like me. You make me feel. Get off my back. Don't nag me. Do as I wish. Meet my expectations and demands so that I won't ever get angry. Resentful here, right? And now he's blaming the wife for the reason why he went back to drinking. That's the stuff we've got to watch out for. I'm in real danger when I'm running around blaming everybody for you make me feel. because I have demands upon you. You should be following my rules so that don't you know what your lines are when interacting with me so that I can feel okay about me. It's insane the expectations and demands I put on other people. And so it continues. It says, of course, our friend was wrong, dead wrong. He had to painfully admit that and mend his spiritual fences. Spiritual fences aren't walls. When I think about like a white picket fence, I could talk to my neighbor through that white picket fence. It's not a wall. But sometimes in my relationships, you know what? You really bug me. You know what? I don't like your attitude, so I'm going to give you the silent treatment or I'm going to keep score. Well, you did this. You make me feel. No one has the power to make me feel any certain way. It's just I've been giving more power over my mind and my emotions. And in AA and Cocaine Anonymous, I'm taught that I need to take responsibility for me and look at those old ideas and beliefs. Underneath my husband not doing the dishes for 2 days is I need something's missing in the dramatic story that if he doesn't do them for 2 days, I will always have to do them. I've had to remove from my vocabulary the word always and never because I'm so dramatic with tossing those two words around. Because I tell myself a really scary story. Why do I do that? Because that's the bondage itself. I take 10% of the facts. He didn't do the dishes for 2 days, and I've written 90% of the story. It's unconscious. And then I go to the thing that's familiar to me, which is anger. Because anger feels like power to me, and I want power in this situation when lack of power is my dilemma. But you know what? I like power. It feels like power, but I'm really afraid. And I'm looking for a way to use anger to manipulate you to get you to act right according to my demands. And it's absolutely insane, but I could have never told you that this was how I show up to life if it wasn't for the 12-step inventory looking at my sex conduct, which is more than just the actual intercourse part. So to go back to the sex inventory on page 68, I want to be sensible about these things and not so dramatic in my relationships, with any relationship. When we get down to the sex conduct and we look at our inventory, I get to look at those deep-seated beliefs, these old ideas and beliefs on how a relationship should be. Because you see, I've been shooting all over the place my entire life. I should, they should, the world should. I got a whole script written for you on how you ought to be. There was never any room for love or humility in my life. I had no idea what spiritual principles were. I had no ideals in place. In the sex conduct inventory, it asked me to write a sane and sound ideal. And the first time I did it, I wrote a sane and sound ideal for you, boyfriend, that I want in the future. My sponsor said, no, 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 no. It's a sane and sound ideal for you, Beth. So whatever you wrote on that piece of paper for him, I want you to turn it around and that's how you're going to show up. And so I had to start living by principles instead of I need, something's missing. Because like I said, you can't love me right. I'm so insecure, I don't even know it. I wasn't realistic. I wasn't honest with myself about what's important to me. I never had values, as our book says. We can't fool ourselves to values. I was especially jealous because you can't make me feel special enough. So I had a self-centered fear where I had to control that. My husband was married before me and has a daughter with her. Years ago, married, long before me, decades ago. Well, his ex-wife just died from alcoholism. She died from alcoholism. She lives out in Oregon. He's got a little girl and it's her mom. It's her mom, and she's made some pretty poor choices as his daughter. She lives in Ohio and she wants to fly out and be part of that funeral. See, my husband is one of us, and he's got a lot of guilt around his behavior still as a father, showing up as an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. And so he wants to do what's right by his little girl. And he wants to fly her out to Oregon. You know what? He wants to buy a plane ticket and go out there and support her. And because I'm selfish and self-centered, or I like to say I'm not selfish and self-centered, the truth about me is I'm not selfish and self-centered. The truth about me is God resides in me. And when I have access to that, those behaviors don't come out. So I don't like to run around and say I'm so selfish and self-centered. I like to say that I can behave that way. And I get the awareness of this by doing a good fourth step, a thorough fourth step, seeing the causes and conditions. And what ends up happening to me is I've got a mind that A, picks up, oh my God, that's a lot of money to fly the two of them out on an emergency flight out to Oregon from basically the East Coast. The second thought is, he's going to be with his wife's ex-family. And so the mind starts playing little tricks on me because ego shows up, the bondage of self, and it writes a really scary story. And why does it do that? Because there's a perverse payoff if I make myself at the center of my own little universe, telling myself a freaky story. I'm going to make it about the money, which actually there is a little bit of financial insecurity coming up. But God, I got to get rid of me. Am I being jealous? Am I being bitter over something in the past? Am I secure in who I am because of whose I am today? Or am I making it all about me, 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 me? Am I making a problem out of something that is not a problem? And so I have to look at this stuff. Am I getting a little jealous? Am I a little worried that he's going to go out there and see old friends and reconnect and kind of miss her and like, this is where I need God's help. I wish I could think my way into right living. I need to God to remove enough of me so that I can get out of the way, so that I can be the wife that God's intended me to be, instead of picking up these old ideas, this insecurity. If I could create a better version of self, I would not be sitting here with you today. I would just think positively, get over it, and bam, I would be walking this great path in life and I wouldn't need any of you. But it's like holding my breath when I just try to act right. And so I have to write inventory on these things and see what I'm really afraid of. Is this sensible, as the book says? Or am I picking up old ideas and belief and a lot of fear here, fear about what may or may not happen, the scary story that I tell myself because I'm living in the future. And I need God to ask him for a new perspective in this moment. God, what would you have me be if I didn't have this fear, insecurity, jealousy right now? These are the questions I have to use to connect with my God all throughout my day as this stuff pops up. See, I don't know what's going to happen, but I need to be open, honest, and willing to allow my husband's experience to unfold without me showing up being fearful and afraid and insecure. Because I don't know what God has planned. God lights my next footstep, but I want the whole path to be shown to know that I'm going to be okay because it's all about I'm going to be okay. I need to know I'm going to feel okay. It's absolutely insane what the ego does, the bondage of self. I call it the ego's trilogy. Whenever I am in fear, anger, or guilt, if I react from fear, anger, or guilt, what I do is I create more fear, anger, and guilt. And I just spin around that triangle. And this is why I do a thorough 4 steps so I can get in touch with these things that I default to or use as a defense, because these things are familiar to me. And I like what's familiar, even if it's uncomfortable. So it continues. It says, here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes, perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. Isn't the right kind. Like I said, you can't love me right. 6 months, I think I'm Beth the Builder. I'm going to change him. He needs to act right. Get your dirty socks off my floor. I have white kitchen cabinets here. My husband spills coffee down them all the time, and it just so happens that he spills them right after I clean them. And he eats a bag of potato chips. And when he sits up from his chair, the dog's up there trying to get the crumbs because my husband spills potato chips all over the thing. These things really bug me. These things used to drive my behaviors in my past relationships because I thought I was going to change you. See, the truth is if my husband didn't make it home because he got hit by a bus tomorrow, I would miss that he spilled the coffee. I would miss that he left crumbs in the seat. I have to ask myself, can I have the humility and go to God to ask for a new perspective when these things bug me? So that I can get an intuitive thought so that I'm not running around criticizing him and trying to get him to change all the time. Because I like to harp on the little things. Nobody wants to kiss the lips that have been chewing them out all day. But that's what I used to do. I'd chew you out all day because I thought I could get you to act right because I want some kind of power, when lack of power is my dilemma. A lot of what I've learned in taking the 12 steps and having relationships with other women in the program have taught me how to have relationships in my life. God help me with the right tone with my husband when I approach him with things, because my tone just doesn't come out very nice. I need God's help sometimes. I can't rest happiness and satisfaction. If I think I can just manage well. Without help, it is too much for us, the big book says. This isn't a self-help program. I'm going to fix me. God, help me correct my perception. Help me accept my husband as he is, as is. Help me to have true love and tolerance. And true love and tolerance isn't just me muttering it underneath my breath. Let me have love and tolerance right now. It's about asking God to change me. To do that thing that I said, love is a verb. It's a choice. It's an action. To make a demonstration of that even when I don't feel like it. Because when I choose principles over my mouth and my head, see, feelings are fickle. They're like the weather. They constantly change. They just don't get a vote anymore. They're too immature. They're too narcissistic. I call them narcissistic reactions to life. My mother used to call me a narcissist all the time before I got into the program. Now I see she was absolutely right. And Dr. Harry Tebow says in AA Comes of Age, the alcoholic is omnipotent, right? I think I'm bigger than God. I know what needs to happen here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to control him. Absolutely insane. So when we talk about this big book, it's more than just the intercourse thing. It goes on, it says, they see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anybody's sex conduct, right? I'm not here to judge you and for your conduct, and I'm not the arbiter of what it is you do. As a sponsor, I lay the spiritual toolkit at your feet, and either you pick it up or you don't. But I also don't want to make the person in my relationship, say my husband, the arbiter of my value. I want to stay differentiated. He comes home, he's in an awful mood. Boy, oh boy, he can get right underneath my skin. He needs to act right. You know what? He needs to be in a better mood. You know what? He's throwing the dishes around in the sink right now. Now I'm pissed off, and that's really bugging me. Because I don't know how to stay differentiated. I've got to know the truth about who I am so that I know who he is and that that's his stuff. And it has nothing to do with me. It's not personal. I use this story all the time. It's like, if Bjorn, you say to me, hey, Beth, I hate your green hair. I'm like, ha, 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 Bjorn, I don't have green hair. But if Harry says to me, you know what, I've seen you before at a meeting, Beth, and you put on 10 pounds since I last saw you. Boy, my claws aren't going to come out on Bjorn because I don't believe I have green hair. But if I believe and I have body image issues, boy, my claws are going to come out on Harry because I don't, now I'm pissed off and I'm taking Harry personally because that old idea and belief. So this is what we're shining a light on in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm shining a light on that I can give my husband, I can make him my higher power, that he needs to behave some other way because that's impacting me because you make me feel, which again is insane. See, the truth is I want to feel amazing and wonderful all the time, and he's not showing up that way, so it becomes a how dare you. It's an expectation that I've placed on him because what I do as an alcoholic and an addict is I make demands on you from you to make me feel okay. And I've got to watch out for these things. Where am I making demands? And where am I whole as it is, whether or not he's in here pissed off and throwing the dishes around? I'm still whole. I'm still okay in this moment. But the head starts talking and tells me a story that he needs to act right. He should never behave like that. So what I'm doing in Alcoholics Anonymous and in Cocaine Anonymous is I'm becoming aware of my thought life, as the 10th step says, or the 11th step says. The awareness is the gift that I get. That this mind talks to me in my own voice. It's judgmental, it's critical, it's got opinions, judgments, and preferences. I always say if I never had an opinion, judgment, or preference, I would never suffer. So today I get to be the awareness of these thoughts that go on and watch them like birds flying over my house, right? There's probably 10,000 birds that fly over my house a day. I cannot control them. That's what my thoughts are like. But I can pick to choose which ones I let build a nest on my house. I can choose which ones I let bear fruit and take root. And I have to pick the ones that are loving and nurturing and that support the truth about who I am. Just because my husband is upset, just because bad Brad at work is disappointed or unhappy with me, they're not the arbiter of my value. My value today has to come from God. I cannot keep handing over my security to everyone in this world because humans will fail me. In the 12 and 12, this is the perfect line. It says the primary fact that we fail to recognize is our total inability to form a true partnership with other human beings. Our egomania digs two disastrous pitfalls. Either we insist upon dominating the people we know, or we depend on them far too much. If we lean too heavily on people, they will sooner or later fail us, for they are human. We are all human and imperfect humans, and I have to stop making other people my higher power and making demands on them to live up to my expectation, my set of rules, my shoulds. They will always fail, but God never fails me. God needs to be the God in my life. I need God esteem and God confidence instead of looking for you for my confidence and my self-esteem. Says we all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse? Jealousy, suspicion, bitterness. Where were we at fault? What should we have done better? These are the things that I get down on paper. Again, it's more for me, the more revealing that I've been throughout the years. I've learned that what I do to you is what I do to myself. I'll say that again. The golden rule is that I do unto others. What I do to myself is what I end up doing to you. And what I'm doing in Alcoholics Anonymous is I'm exposing these things, shining a light on them, and asking God to heal them. Some of the amends that I had to make to some of these men during my sex conduct were, I expected you to live up to my standards I set for you. Why? Because what I do to myself, I do to you. I have a lot of unrealistic expectations and rules for myself that I couldn't live up to. So I'm going to have those rules and expectations on everybody else. Another amends that I had to make to someone was I dismissed your feelings constantly. And it didn't erase my need to respond to you. See, I emasculated people due to myself what I do to others. See, I dismiss and I ignore my own feelings. So how am I ever going to show up and be able to let you have some validation or to hear you out. Because dealing with my own feelings was too squirmy, fearful, and painful for me. I shamed others in my relationship for not doing things the way I thought you should do. I do to myself what I do to others. I shame myself with my own ideas of perfectionism, my perfectionistic demands on me and how things should be done. I take a bat to myself, and then I use that same bat on other people. And I didn't know that I did this because I had unrealistic rules, demands, and expectations that I assigned to myself, and therefore I assign them to you. Just get in the car and drive for a day with me. You're in the fast lane, you're going the speed limit, my hair goes on fire. Because I've got rules for myself, and I think I'm such a great driver. And I expect everyone else to follow those same rules, demands, and expectations. And so what God has been doing and working in my life is, as I reveal these old wounds of what it is that I do to myself, I get God to be the arbiter of my values so that I'm not so rule driven and should driven and having these fantasies our big book talks about, these illusions and delusions that I suffer from. I make a mistake at work, and the delusion is that I should be above making mistakes, or I make a mistake and I say something uncanny in AA. The delusion is I should be mere spiritual by now. The illusion is that if I never make a mistake, I'll be okay. The truth is I am a human being and I'm always going to make a mistake. I think what makes me a cocaine addict and an alcoholic is that I wanted to rise above that and I didn't have to look at any of that stuff when I was doped up and drinking. It didn't bother me so much. I had to make an amends to a man because I alienated him. When things started going downhill, boy, I loved the silent treatment. I loved keeping score. I became his adversary instead of his partner. And the reason why I do that is because I alienate and I ignore myself. And I didn't know that I did that. These relationships that I had with people weren't built on love. They were built on fear. As long as you meet my needs and fulfill my needs. My first sponsor said to me, Beth, the car is broken. You're the car. When the car is broken, you take it off the road. I want you to not date for a while, at least until you do your fifth step. And here's why, Beth. You don't have a sane and sound ideal. And because one of the warnings in our big book is on page 70, suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we will believe we will be forgiven and we will have learned our lesson. Beth, you haven't done the fifth step yet. You don't know what your wrongs and your motives were. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts of our experience. I had to write a sane and sound ideal. And what that sane and sound ideal looked like for me was loving you for who you are instead of me expecting you to be different. Spill the coffee on the white cabinets. How big of a deal is it? Have some humility, Beth. Like I said, if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, I would miss those things. I want to have their own sense of self-worth. Well, Beth, you better have your own sense of self-worth. Like I said, I wrote it the wrong time for him. My sponsor turned these things around on me. To be autonomous. Our traditions talk a lot about how I can live with you in sanity without wanting to murder you. So I've been married for a little over 2 years. My husband's never had a credit card before. He wants to build his credit, and I said, fine, get a credit card. But make small purchases and pay it off each month. Well, I have a credit report that comes along a couple months after he gets that credit card, and it tells me that my credit card score is starting to go down. And the reason why is because this credit card he opened up now has $3,000. Well, that's not a small purchase to me. And I want to unleash. There is no love. There is no empathy. There is no compassion. It becomes, I'm a victim. How dare you? And I thought we were in agreement. I'm going to, and I want to run home because my little snow globe of emotions is all stirred up. That little snow globe is all crazy. And I want to, you make me feel. But today I have the program. I have 12 steps. I have a design for living. I write inventory. I call my sponsor. And I get real clear on the fear that I'm driven by. And I need God to remove enough of me so that I can have a conversation with him. And I need to be sensible. I need to apply principles. I can't do that when my snow globe's all stirred up. So I need to wait until it's calm so that I'm not in the ill egos trilogy of fear, anger, and guilt, that bondage. And when I'm calm, I connect with God and I get the intuitive thought. And I am able to say to my husband, you know what? We're a team. Do you want to be debt free? Because that's something that I value. Was this a whoops? These are things that I could never approach him from, or in my past relationships, show up sensibly and ask questions like this. Because my little snow globe would just make, I told you, I never had relationships with people. I've just had reactionships. To have a conversation with my husband about this instead of coming at him with anger, because anger feels like power. We want to serve the marriage and not ourselves. Maybe this is an area he doesn't have compassion in. We need to get on the same page. So I have this conversation with him in a loving, kind way, which is not of me. It's only of God. A few months later, he did it again. He did it again. We weren't on the same page. The hair goes on fire. The snow globe's all stirred up. I have to write inventory. I have to go to God. I have to calm the snow globe. Otherwise, I will be the victim to him. I made myself a victim to him. He's not doing it. I need to pray and ask God to help me, to have a new perspective, to put me in a place where I'm less affected. But that doesn't mean that I'm just a doormat, but I get to learn how to have a conversation with my husband. I don't think we were on the same page the first time we talked about this. Are you willing to go to any lengths to change? And what are you going to do differently? And put it back on him so that it's not my responsibility. Because if he said, you know, we just need to finance and you're really good with numbers, so why don't you do all the financing and watch my spending? What I would do is I would just end up resentful of having to do that. I don't have to control it all. I don't have to step in and fix, manage, and control and the finances. I know me. I will be resentful if I have to do that. So again, that conversation comes from a place of calm when the snow globe is down. We've got to be on the same page. I'm affected too, Jason. Our finances are not autonomous. Are you feeling powerless over buying 5 cups of coffee at the convenience store today? And then I leave the choices up to him. He, like me, he's one of us. He picks up the guilt, shame, and remorse. He has to have his own experience with his God to come out of that. But I'm so grateful that I get to show up differently, not of my own power, to approach my husband in a loving, kind way. He thinks I'm the most awesome wife because I have compassion. I never had compassion. That is only of God. That I have an amazing marriage today because I'm able to calm the emotions down, the narcissistic reactions. That I'm able to forgive today because God makes that possible, not me. See, my lack of forgiveness was an illusion to keep some kind of control, to have some kind of power. Because then I can exercise my right to be justified and judge you and your horrible husband for doing that 2 times to me. By not forgiving, I imprison myself And I self-righteously tell myself that I can behave self-righteously and I can be a victim. My sponsor says you can be a victim or you could be victorious. My perceived dismissal of you the first time when I told you we're on the same page about finances. I gotta look at those old ideas and beliefs, the fear behind these things. The gift that I get in Alcoholics Anonymous is that I get to write these ideals of what I'm supposed to be. And then ask God to help me be willing to grow toward it. I'm going to end with this. On page 70, there's a great prayer here, and it's more than just for me about sex. It says to sum up about sex, but I'm going to say to sum up about relationships. I use this one at my job all the time because bad Brad and conniving Connie just really bug me. We earnestly pray for the right ideal. The ideal of how I should be. God, if I didn't have this fear, anger, guilt, what would you have me be right here, right now? Quick little prayer. For guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, for the strength to do the right thing, because God gives me strength to do the right thing today. If my relationship, my job, my boss, my financial situation is very troublesome, I throw myself harder into helping others. I think of their needs and work for them. This takes me out of myself. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. The gift that I get in Alcoholics Anonymous is that I get ideals, that I'm not making demands and expectations on you as often as I used to, that I get a relationship with God so that I can be sensible in these matters when I'm disturbed, that I take responsibility for me and how I feel today, that I get big islands of peace. Sometimes I go for a swim, but not as often or as long as I used to. So it's not about the cash and prizes, about getting the husband and having a better job and making more money. It's about having peace in my life today. The big book says that the most satisfactory years of our life lay ahead. I wanted amazing and joyous and happy. Today, I'm very content with satisfactory. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thanks, Isaac. Hi everyone. My name's Young. I'm a recovered addict. Thank you very much, Beth. It's always good to hear you. In the big book where it says resentment is the number one offender, I often say, in my opinion, 2 and 3, money and the honey. What's your thoughts around this? Thank you.
Say that last part again.
What's your thoughts around that?
Sorry, I was laughing so hard with the yummy and the honey. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And underneath all that stuff is really fear, which is driving all these defenses of character. And I've got to, watch out for this stuff. I think that's why the big book says it's only like 2 places in our big book where it warns us that we're going to drink again. And it is in the sex conduct inventory, but also the finances. Boy, financial insecurity, right? Isn't that why we have the promises, right? That I'll be freed of that stuff. But the ego rebuilds at an astonishing rate. It's like the Who song, Won't Get Fooled Again. Yes, I will. The ego is going to rebuild and I'll get fooled again that finances aren't my problem anymore. But they absolutely are. And I 100% agree that it's a big thing, money and the honey, that I got to turn this stuff over to God and stop being in control of it. Thanks.
Thanks for your question. Before I move on to Laura, we've got one in the chat. What's been the most notable change in your relationships throughout this journey in recovery?
The most notable change for me is the new perspective that I have. I'm just not so reactive anymore. Today, I'm more often able to respond from a place of love rather than fear. So I like to dumb it down. I'm either coming from love or I'm coming from fear. It's really that simple. I'm not always consciously aware, which is why I have amends, but I wasn't ever aware. My level of consciousness had no perspective of that whatsoever before taking the 12 steps.
Thanks, Beth. Next, we have Laura. Laura, would you like to come in with your question?
Yeah, hi. Hi, I'm Laura. I'm an addict. Thank you for hosting the meeting and thank you for everyone doing service and thank you, Beth, for your share. I randomly I've been busy all day and I was like, right, I need to do a meeting and I do certain ones quite regularly. I thought, no, I'll try a different meeting and it turned out to be this. Well, I have been in a codependent, I've been in lots of codependent relationships by the sounds of it, but I have been in this one for like 7 years and we split up about a month ago and I'm in the middle of my step 4. I've only put it down because I'm moving house. So, yeah. And while I've been doing even the first bits, the resentments, my head's been all over, struggling to deal with those emotions. The problem with me is that I keep ending a relationship with this guy who's my son's dad, and then keep going back to him, and then keep ending it and keep going back to him. I love this cycle. I don't know why. Um, and I'm just finding it very difficult to try it, but everything he said made so much sense. So I suppose my question to you is, being where I am, I'm like nearly 6 months clean. I'm on step 4. I'm moving house. I've got a partner who's an ex-partner now, but still in my life, but not in my life, and who we're very codependent on each other with. How do you manage to follow the principles in recovery, which I'm still unsure about? I'm trying my best with all this, but I don't know it all, half of it doesn't make sense. And how do I do the right thing and actually stay to boundaries and not want to, like you were saying about him spending all that money on the credit card and then doing the same thing again. Like, how do you put a boundary in place without trying to change them, but needing them to do the right thing, because you need to be on the same values, but we can't ask them to change. I find it really difficult to work out about. I could talk to you for 50 minutes, but thank you.
Yeah, they say scratch an alcoholic, find a codependent. So I'm very relatable. It's really about allowing God to transform me. And see, I always wanted God to wave his magic wand and fix me right away. And I would say to my sponsor, why am I not better right now? And so sometimes I even lay my expectations on God of what I think things should look like. I wish I could tell you the day I woke up and I just became spiritually fit. I think our 7-step prayer talks about accepting the good and bad, and that I'm not perfect. But choosing love is still a verb and an action. Sometimes I have to choose to treat people with love despite how I feel. And so, not always awake to that. So I give myself some compassion when I'm not. But I want to leave you with the hope that God has transformed me most days. This doesn't mean that I don't have bad reactions, because I have reactionships. But God has revealed to me on his timing in his own way how to show up without trying to fix, manage, and control. And you need to make me feel good and fill that hole so that I go inwards now instead of outwards, not perfectly. Trust the process.
Great question. Thank you, Laura. Next, we have Thomas. Would you like to come in with your question, please?
Hi there, my name's Thomas. I'm an alcoholic addict. I'd like to thank you, Isaac, for your friendship example and sharing the meeting, and thanks to the co-hosts. And Beth, I just wanted to come in so I can let you hear my voice. My name's Thomas. I'm an alcoholic addict, and I'm thanking you for the share and how you really explained it all and how you need to do a further step 4 and get everything done, and I've just realised a lot of things, and like how I played the victim, do you know what I mean? In lots of my situations, but I just loved your passion, how you spoke about the steps and how you spoke about how you got your step 4 done and how you don't behave the way you used to be, the way you used to, and you're speaking about sometimes like your boyfriend or your husband would do some stuff like leave crumbs on the chair or spill coffee in the unit. It's like me and my mum, she's an alcoholic as well, and it's like
Thomas,
I
do you
do
have a
things.
question for Beth?
Oh, sorry, I am not. I actually don't. I just wanted to come in and say thank you and just how you've grown and thanks for your sharing.
Thanks, Thomas, and it's great to have you with us always, brother. Next, we've got Blaine. Would you like to come in with your question?
Hi Isaac, thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm Blaine. I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. Thank you, Beth. My question is I think it's more of an opinion than a question. I've just been trying to make something work with someone who my children's mum, who in the madness obviously I hurt badly, and we tried to make it work. And when I was there, I was getting this feeling that I shouldn't be there, and I didn't want to be there. That feeling it wasn't right, and I've been praying on it and praying on it, and I've decided to leave and not try for that relationship anymore. Then now, from that, I've decided to go to make a decision to move back to where I first started getting sober. And I'm just wondering, is that me being selfish and running away from my problems? What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good thing to write inventory on, to get real clear on. I think for me, when there's something, when I put pen to paper, God reveals these things to me, but I have to write it out, right? So for me, when I look at the third column in my sex conduct, third column, but even in my resentment, where am I looking for security, self-esteem? Where am I creating bitterness? Where am I selfish and dishonest? I really got to take a look at my behavior. Then when I'm done, it kind of all comes together, and I normally run that by someone, right? Because our 10 step says that we discuss it with someone. And then pray and maybe ask God to reveal someone that has like the similar situation. I just want to stay right size. I don't have that experience. So the only thing that I'm able to share is our literature and prayer.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Blaine, for your question. Last but definitely not least, we've got Lauren. Lauren, would you like to come in with your question?
Hi guys, I'm Lauren, I'm an addict. Thank you everybody for taking the meeting. Hiya Beth, thank you very much for your share. I'll make it a quick one. I was laughing when you were on about your husband booking plane tickets, because my partner just the other day messaged us, "Hi babe, I'm going to India for 2.5 weeks, 17th of November, 3rd of December." My face was like, wow, okay, no problem. So obviously there was a problem. The problem was, like, I wasn't considered in his decision, right? And it's like, to me, I believe like couples should talk about this stuff and consult each other. And I had no issue with them going, but it was like a big shock. And I struggle with like sort of wanting to be respected but not wanting to seem controlling at the same time, and how to help communicate that in a healthy way. And I liked what you said when you give us a fine example, but I just wondered, as a question, would you please elaborate on any other ways that you practice doing that, and actually sitting someone down and communicating that in a healthy way and asking God to be there with you? If you could just maybe give me a bit more insight.
Yeah, so one of the things of getting on the same page with us, and again, I use the traditions a lot in our relationship. So we're on the same page that if anybody spends more than $1,000 or whatever number we've assigned, that we want to confer with each other. That's one of our values in a relationship. Obviously, he walked over and trumped that, right? But I heard you say, and I think I felt it at least, I don't feel respected enough that you would consider me, because you can't love me right. You didn't consider me, right? I make everything all about me, 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 me. And so I need to come from a place where wow, I understand you want to go to India, or I understand you want to buy 5 cups of coffee a day, but the way it makes me feel, and I keep it in the I, I kind of felt left out on that decision. So it's really important that I keep it in the I. So I can say, I felt when you booked the plane tickets, and I just want to be on the same page. Is there a way we can work together to do that? And approaching it from that way, instead of making everything about me and using the words you and you did that, like just remove the word you from the category. Another good thing that my sponsor taught me, whenever I have a difficult conversation, start and end it with gratitude. Say something nice about them, keep it in the I in the middle, end with something nice about them. It's okay to ask for what I want, but it's not okay to be attached to whether or not I get that outcome.
Thank you, Beth, again, and thank you, Lauren, for your question. So that brings us to about 9 p.m. UK time, which brings us to the end of question and share time.